I sat frozen in that cold courtroom, staring across the polished oak table at Derek. The man I once promised forever to was now a stranger, smirking like he had won some twisted game. 12 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, all reduced to demands and legal paperwork. And then Derek leaned back casually, his voice cutting the silence like a blade. "I want it all back," he said. "Everything I ever gave you and the kids, the gifts, the memories, even the telescope he once helped our son assemble under the Christmas lights." At that moment, something inside me broke, but not in the way Derek expected, because surrendering everything he demanded wouldn't destroy me, it would free me. My name is Lauren Bennett. This is the story of how I gave up everything and gained even more. Before we dive deeper, tell me, if someone you once loved demanded everything back, would you fight them or would you let it all go? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Sophia's Revenge Stories for new powerful true stories every day. 12 years ago, I married Derek Bennett under a sky of soft summer stars, believing we were starting a forever story. I was 26, full of hope, full of dreams. He was charming, ambitious, a man who promised he would build a life with me side by side. We bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood, a fixer-upper, but I didn't care. I poured my heart into that home, painting walls, planting flowers, turning it into a place where laughter lived. We welcomed our son Stephen 3 years into the marriage. I still remember the way Derek cried, holding him for the first time. 2 years later, Rosie came along, our little spark, our sunshine. Life wasn't perfect. Money was tight sometimes. Derek worked long hours. I picked up art classes at night, dreaming one day I'd have my own gallery. But what mattered to me most was our family. Our little unit against the world? At least that's what I believed. The cracks started small, missed anniversaries, a growing distance between us. Derek changed jobs, and with his success came late nights, secretive phone calls, and the cold disinterest that slowly replaced the man I thought I knew. I blamed myself at first. Maybe I wasn't exciting enough. Maybe I had let motherhood consume me, but deep down I knew. Then came Sabrina Monroe, young, vibrant, always perfectly polished, the kind of woman Derek once said he didn't care about. I found out the truth by accident, a text meant for her that he sent to me instead. No apology, no fight, just a quiet, smug acceptance from Derek when I confronted him, like he had already moved on. When I filed for divorce, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong in court. Derek was a stranger. His face wore no shame, no regret, just a smug, calculated satisfaction, as if he was punishing me for daring to walk away. And then his final blow, he demanded everything back. Not just the jewelry he had given me over the years, not just the keepsakes from our marriage, but even the gifts he had given Stephen and Rosie, the telescope Stephen treasured, the music box Rosie wound up every night before bed. Anything over $50, he said. Anything he could reclaim to hurt me, to humiliate me. I sat there frozen as Julia Adams, my lawyer, whispered urgently in my ear, promising to fight it, telling me we could win. But deep inside, a quiet voice spoke louder. Let it go. I wasn't going to fight over scraps with a man who valued trinkets over his own children. I made a decision that day. I would give Derek exactly what he asked for. Every gift, every necklace, every toy. I would pack them up, deliver them to his shiny new life, and walk away with my dignity intact. Because Derek could have the things, but he would never have my peace, and he would never again have power over me or my children. What he didn't realize then was, sometimes giving everything away is the greatest power move you can make. The days after the courtroom showdown felt strangely mechanical. I moved through my house like a ghost, pulling memories out of drawers, closets, and storage bins. One by one, I gathered everything Derek had ever given me, the emerald necklace he bought after Stephen's birth, the diamond earrings from our 5th anniversary trip, the antique silver bracelet I wore to every school fundraiser. Each piece carried a memory, each one cut deeper than the last, and it wasn't just my things. In Stephen's room, the telescope sat by the window, the one Derek spent hours helping him assemble the Christmas. Stephen turned 10. Next to it, astronomy books, with Stephen's careful, childish notes scribbled in the margins. In Rosie's room, her music box. The one that played soft lullabies each night sat proudly on her nightstand. She still wound it up before bed, even now. Touching these things felt like a betrayal, not just of myself, but of them. But I reminded myself, they weren't memories, they were objects. Objects. Derek was willing to rip away from his own children just to hurt me. So I wrapped each item carefully, layer by layer, treating them like fragile relics of a life that no longer belonged to us. Julia Adams called almost daily, urging me to reconsider. "You don't have to do this, Lauren," she insisted. "This is petty harassment. We can fight it. We can drag him through court." But I was done fighting Derek on his level. Done letting him dictate the battlefield. I didn't want a courtroom drama. I wanted peace. And if handing over the last remnants of our marriage bought me that peace, I was willing to pay the price. I cataloged everything meticulously, listing every necklace, every bracelet, every toy, even down to a souvenir mug from a long-forgotten family trip. By the end of the week, my living room looked like a shipping depot. Stacks of taped boxes lined the floor. A mountain of memories sealed away, waiting to be delivered to the life Derek had chosen. The kids noticed, of course. Stephen came home from school one afternoon, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and froze at the sight. His jaw clenched, a flicker of anger flashing across his face. "What's all this?" he asked, his voice tight. Rosie hovered behind him, her wide eyes brimming with worry. "Are we moving, Mommy?" she whispered. I knelt down, pulling them close. "No, honey," I said, forcing a smile. "We're not moving, we're just giving Daddy some things he asked for." Stephen's fists balled at his sides. "You mean the telescope?" He growled. "He's taking my telescope." My heart broke cleanly in two. "Yes," I said softly. "But remember, it's just a thing. You still have your love for the stars. No one can take that from you." Rosie sniffled, clutching her favorite stuffed unicorn to her chest. "Is he taking my music box, too?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yes, sweetie. But we'll find something even more special to keep by your bed." They didn't cry, not in that moment. But I saw it, the betrayal, the hurt, the confusion. And in that moment, my resolve hardened. Derek wasn't just trying to hurt me. He was trying to carve scars into the hearts of the very children he claimed to love. I would protect them, not by fighting, but by showing them how to rise above cruelty. By the weekend, the boxes were loaded onto a delivery truck. A professional courier would hand them off to Derek's new luxury apartment. I watched from my front porch as the truck rumbled away, carrying the relics of a life I was finally ready to leave behind. It should have felt like defeat, but standing there in the crisp morning air, the sun warming my face, I felt lighter than I had in months. He could have his jewelry, he could have his trophies, he could have the pretty things he thought defined love. Because what I had, the loyalty of my children, my self-respect, my future, was worth more than all of it combined. And Derek Bennett was about to learn a hard, painful truth. You can demand back every gift you ever gave, but you can't reclaim the soul you abandoned. The boxes arrived at Derek's doorstep the following Monday. I wasn't there to see it, but a friend of mine, Chloe Martin, lived just a few doors down from his new building. She texted me later that afternoon, saw the delivery. He looked way too smug for a man accepting hand-me-downs. She wrote? I smiled faintly, imagining Derek standing there, arms crossed, as the movers stacked the boxes around him like trophies. In his mind, he had won. He thought he'd stripped me bare, reduced me to nothing. But Derek didn't understand what he was really receiving. He wasn't getting back valuables. He was getting back the empty shell of what he'd destroyed. He was getting the reminders of everything he'd thrown away. Inside one of those smaller boxes, neatly packed among the jewelry and trinkets, was something he hadn't expected. Photographs? Hundreds of them. Stephen's gap-toothed grin at his first baseball game. Rosie's birthday party with the lopsided cake we made together. Beach trips, Christmas mornings, messy art projects, moments, memories, love, captured in snapshots. All carefully cataloged. All returned to him like unpaid debts. He could never settle. There were children's drawings too. Stephen's crayon rocket ships, Rosie's stick figure ballerinas twirling across notebook paper, and tucked into the final box on top of everything else was a single handwritten note in my neatest, steadiest script. I returned every item you demanded, but the love, the laughter, the care you never gave, those were never yours to reclaim. No anger, no pleading, just truth. I never knew exactly what happened when Derek opened those boxes, but Chloe said later that she saw him standing in the driveway, the last box still open at his feet. Frozen, staring at something inside, Sabrina Monroe hovered beside him, clutching a designer handbag, like it was a prize. Her smile slipping when she realized Derek wasn't celebrating. It didn't matter, I didn't need to see it, I didn't need to hear it. Because the true break between us, the moment of no return, wasn't in that courtroom. It wasn't in the custody papers or the property settlement, it was here. Now I had given him everything he asked for. And in doing so, I had taken back everything that mattered, my dignity, my children's trust, my peace. The next morning, as I packed lunches for Stephen and Rosie, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Stephen shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. He glanced at the empty shelf where his telescope once stood. "You okay, buddy?" I asked. He shrugged. "Yeah, it's just weird without it." I set a sandwich into his backpack and looked him in the eye. "You know," I said gently, "you're still the same boy who loves the stars. You don't need a telescope to see them." He managed a small smile, and my heart ached with pride. Rosie danced into the kitchen next, twirling in her mismatched socks. "Mommy, can we get a new music box someday?" she asked. I knelt down and hugged her close. "We can get 100 new music boxes, sweetheart," I whispered. "But none will ever be as precious as the songs you already carry in your heart." And just like that, I realized the things Derek had demanded back were never what made us a family. It was the memories we carried inside, the love that couldn't be boxed up or priced or stolen away. Standing in my sunlit kitchen with my children's laughter rising like music around me, I knew one thing with absolute certainty: Derek hadn't taken anything from me. He had only freed me, and as the first true spring breeze drifted through the open window, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for years. I was finally free. And no one, not Derek, not Sabrina, not anyone could take that away. The days that followed were strangely quiet. Without the looming presence of Derek's demands, life at home began to settle into a new rhythm. But deep down, I knew the final chapter of this painful exchange hadn't been written yet. I had delivered the boxes, I had walked away. But Derek, he wasn't done. It started with a phone call from Julia Adams, my lawyer. "You might want to brace yourself," she said carefully. "I just got a message. Derek's team is claiming you returned damaged goods." I blinked. Damaged, scratched jewelry, torn handbags, broken vase. She listed off dryly. "He's threatening a lawsuit, wants reimbursement for property devaluation." For a moment, I just sat there stunned by the pettiness of it all. He couldn't just let it end. He had to scrape for one more ounce of control. One more attempt to drag me through the mud. Julia advised me to ignore it. "He's bluffing," she said. "There's no legal standing. He's desperate." But ignoring Derek's antics wasn't enough for me anymore. I needed to close this door so firmly it could never be reopened. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with undeniable truth. So I made a plan. I went through every receipt, every record I had, gathering dates, prices, appraisals. I created a full inventory of the items he had demanded back, complete with photos and condition notes, taken before the delivery. I even gathered old emails and texts, proof that most of these gifts were spontaneous, without any conditions attached. Proof that they had belonged to me and the children, free and clear. It was exhausting. Every photo I sorted, every receipt I filed, every memory I had to revisit. But it was necessary. It wasn't about Derek anymore. It was about drawing a line for me and for my kids. When the file was complete, I handed it over to Julia. A heavy binder filled with undeniable evidence. "If he tries to sue," I told her calmly, "he's going to regret it." Julia smiled, a rare gleam of admiration in her eyes. "You've turned his own game against him, Lauren." I nodded. "I'm done playing by his rules." Meanwhile, I focused on my children. Stephen was preparing for his school's science fair. His project, a model of the solar system meticulously crafted out of clay and string. "I don't need the old telescope," he told me one night, his voice filled with quiet determination. "I'll build my own universe." Rosie, too, was healing in her own way. Every night, instead of winding up a music box, she would hum a song as she brushed her hair, her own lullaby, soft and sweet. We were stitching ourselves back together, not with things, but with moments, with love. Still, Derek's shadow lingered, until one evening, Julia called again. I answered on the second ring. My heart steady. "You're officially done," she said, her voice bright. "He's dropped everything, no lawsuit, no further claims, it's over." I let out a breath I hadn't even realized I was holding. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you not just to Julia, but to myself. For refusing to sink to Derek's level, for choosing peace over bitterness, for choosing me." That night, I stood in the middle of my living room, now free of stacked boxes and silent ghosts, and smiled. I wasn't the woman who had sat trembling in a courtroom, begging for scraps of a life that no longer existed. I was Lauren Bennett, mother artist survivor. I had walked through the fire and come out the other side, not unscathed but stronger. And in that quiet golden evening light, I made a silent vow. No matter what Derek did, no matter how many petty games he tried to play, he would never ever steal my peace again, because I had built something no one could take away. A home filled with laughter, a heart filled with hope, a future blazing with possibility. And that was a treasure worth far more than any necklace, any vase, or any petty victory Derek Bennett could ever imagine. For a while, things stayed quiet. Stephen's science fair came and went. Rosie's ballet recital drew cheers from the crowd, and slowly the house began to feel like a home again. A place of warmth, not a battlefield. But the past has a way of finding cracks to seep through. One afternoon as I was sorting laundry, my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made my stomach twist. Derek Bennett. I stared at it for a long moment, debating whether to answer. Curiosity won. "Hello," I said, cautiously. There was a pause on the other end. Then Derek's voice, quieter than I remembered. "Lauren," he said, I just wanted to apologize. Really apologize for everything." I said nothing. I waited. He stumbled through his words, sounding less like the smug man who once smirked across a courtroom, and more like someone lost. "I was wrong," he said, "about everything, about you, about the kids. I ruined it all. I know that now." Another long pause. "I found the box you sent," he added, his voice cracking slightly. "The photos, the drawings, the receipts, the memories." I closed my eyes, the image flashing across my mind. Derek finally facing what he had thrown away. "I was such a fool," he whispered. I thought things would be better, with Sabrina, with the new life." A bitter laugh. "But it's all gone, she's gone. Took everything she could, left me with debt and nothing." I opened my mouth to say something, but he kept going. "I miss the kids." He said, "I miss being someone who mattered." The weight of his regret poured through the line, heavy and raw. For a brief second, pity stirred in my chest. Not love, not longing, just sadness for what could never be repaired. "I'm sorry, Derek," I said quietly, "but some things you don't get to fix." There was a long silence, then a soft, broken, "I know." He hung up without another word. I stared at the phone in my hand, feeling strangely light. Not angry, not vindicated, just free. Derek's apology didn't change the past. It didn't erase the hurt, but it did confirm something I'd always known. Deep down, walking away had been the right choice. Still, the ripple effects of his collapse reached Stephen and Rosie soon enough. Stephen found out first. He came home one afternoon, slamming the door harder than usual. "Did you know Dad got arrested?" He snapped, his voice tight. I blinked, caught completely off guard. "What?" "Chloe's son told me he and Sabrina were fighting. The police got called." He crossed his arms, trying to look tough, but his eyes shone with unshed tears. "He's a mess, Mom. I don't even know who he is anymore." I pulled him into a hug before he could resist. "I'm sorry you're going through this," I whispered. "But remember, Stephen, your father's choices don't define you. You're not him, you're you, and you're good." He clung to me for a long moment before pulling away. Wiping his eyes roughly, Rosie reacted differently when she overheard the news. She curled up beside me on the couch that night, clutching her stuffed bear. "Is Daddy sick?" she asked in a tiny voice. "Is that why he's mean sometimes?" My heart shattered. I stroked her hair gently. "I think Daddy is very unhappy," I said carefully. "And sometimes when people are unhappy, they make bad choices, but none of it is your fault, okay?" She nodded solemnly, burrowing deeper into my side. That night after they were asleep, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the blank canvas I had bought weeks ago but hadn't had the heart to touch. It was time to start painting again, not because I needed to erase the past, but because I was ready to build something new. I picked up the brush, dipped it into a brilliant bold red, and dragged it across the canvas in a single sweeping motion. Strong, unapologetic, alive colors began to flow, blues and golds, Vibrant greens, deep purples, a storm of emotions captured in every stroke. Not sadness, not anger, but freedom. Outside the night deepened. Stars blinked into view, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel weighed down by them. Instead, I felt limitless. No matter what Derek's next move was, no matter what anyone else said or thought, this life, this future was mine to create. And I would fill it with color, laughter, and love. Not for him, not for revenge, but for me. And for the two amazing kids who deserved a mother strong enough to let go and brave enough to begin again. Months passed. The seasons shifted from spring into a warm, golden summer. At home, life unfolded in small, beautiful ways. Stephen won a prize at the state science fair for his solar system model. Rosie starred in her first real ballet recital, twirling across the stage with a joy that lit up the entire room. And me, I picked up my first paintbrush again. Not just for healing, but for living. I started submitting my artwork to local galleries, small shows at first. To my surprise, the response was overwhelming. People connected with the raw emotion in my paintings, the heartbreak, the hope, the fight to rebuild. One afternoon, while helping set up an exhibit, I met Isabella Reed, a curator from a major art institute downtown. She saw something in my work, something she said the world needed to see. She offered me a place in a national exhibition alongside a grant to continue creating. For a long moment, I stood there stunned. Then I smiled. Not because I needed validation, but because I realized how far I had come. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Derek's shadow had long since faded into the background. The man who once tried to reduce my life to a pile of trinkets now meant nothing more than a closed chapter. Because here's the truth. You can lose everything you thought defined you, your marriage, your possessions, your past, and still emerge whole, stronger, brighter. The real treasures aren't the gifts people give you. They're the things no one can take away. Your dignity, your courage, your ability to create a life full of purpose and light. In the end, Derek thought he won by demanding everything back, but he never realized the most priceless things I had were never his to begin with. They were always mine, and they always would be. What Derek tried to take from me were just things. What I kept were the things that mattered: my spirit, my peace, and the unconditional love between me and my children. Healing didn't happen overnight. It came slowly in moments of laughter around the dinner table, late-night talks under the stars, and paintbrush strokes on blank canvases. It came with every step forward, no matter how small. If there's one thing I learned, it's this. You are not defined by what you lose. You are defined by what you choose to hold on to, and what you have the courage to let go. Today, my life is not perfect, but it's real, it's honest, and most importantly, it's mine. If you ever find yourself standing at the edge of loss, wondering if you'll survive, remember, sometimes losing everything you thought you needed is what finally sets you free. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from something or someone you thought you couldn't live without? Share your story in the comments. I promise someone out there needs to hear it. And if you believe that healing is the real revenge, make sure you subscribe to Sophia's Revenge Stories. We share new true stories every day that remind you, you are stronger than you know.